Hello and welcome back to the Facts of Facts, the only Facts of Life podcast that I'm going between two things here. Part of me wants to say, wishes they had fluid in the ears so we didn't have to hear the episode. The other part wants to say, wishes they were the one to ride their bike into Tootie's crotch. I don't know. I'm torn because Tootie was insufferable this week.
Come again? I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I was looking slightly this way, which makes me extra deaf.
Yeah, exactly.
So apologies to any of our listeners / viewers that could possibly be hard of hearing. We're going to try to be sensitive, but at the same time, this episode wasn't trying to be sensitive. So we're really here to break down that. So tonight's episode is called The Sound of Silence. It's season 4. We're in season 4, episode 3. And so only episode 3. I'm telling you, season 5, croissants everywhere. It's going to be great.
Well, I actually thought that this one was going to be mostly like a Roy-focused episode.
Right?
Because I thought it was going to be like,
that.
Roy's dirt bike surprise or something. But no, it's just Tootie screaming, all the time because she can't hear anything and is panicking that she's going to become deaf.
And she does what all normal people would do when they're panicking that they're going to go deaf. Don't get it checked out.
No, I was going to say, deflect by insulting your best friend's writing.
Right? So rude. I couldn't get over that. Maybe because I try to be funny. I try to be a writer. Those insults, when I heard them hurled at Natalie, I was like, it was so hurtful. And then to know that she's just deflecting because she's got something wrong with her that she's ashamed of. Ooh, it didn't look good for Tootie. It looked a little Trumpian, honestly. And the parallels, we will get to the parallels throughout this episode.
However, the interesting thing about this is that so the other thing we should mention is that this is also not only is it heavily Roy, but it's also heavily Cousin Jerry episode. So
here's 2 heavy hitters.
Yeah. So we couldn't. The writers of this show decided to do like a very special episode about Tootie's anxiety around being differently abled, right? And they didn't just think, let's just have Tootie be differently abled. Like, let's just have her explore that story. No, we need to bring in the only other person who is differently abled to come on the show and talk about it.
Well, honestly, we're jumping way ahead, but I will say that I'm not defending the show. I felt like it was a sensitive move later on in the episode when Tootie says she doesn't want to be handicapped and then realizes what she said.
Yes.
And aside from that, I don't think Jerry was supposed to be in this episode.
Yeah.
I think because it's so like cut and paste, where they were like, oh, can we get her? We can get her and we can like knock out one of our contractual obligations. We don't have to do 2 special episodes, a special Jerry and a special Tootie. Yeah, bring her in. Because there is one point when she delivers a line that is so Mrs. Garrett, when she turns down the stereo and then she's like, girls! And then she says the sarcastic, like, it's not healthy to hide your feelings.
I know.
That is so Mrs. Garrett and so not Jerry. Now, I think that was a Mrs. Garrett scene that they're like, sorry, Charlotte, you're out. Bring in Jerry. And at least she got to show off a little bit of her cleavage in one of her outfits, Jerry. It's not cleavage, but everything that she has worn has been like in every episode until this one. It was like, okay, good. So she's got a chest bone. That's nice to know.
Okay.
But before we get into this, we have to do our due diligence, directed by Azad Khalada, of course, because it was directed for shit, this episode.
Yeah, this was directed as though, as I referred to when we were watching, I guess, the Paris special, I said this was sort of like watching something that was directed by the Weekend at Bernie's guy. And you said, Bernie? And I said, yeah, Bernie. This is an Azad. Like, this was directed by someone who could be blind. It was so poorly directed.
Yeah, it really was.
the other thing is that like for doing a very special episode around Tootie's anxiety around being differently abled and possibly losing her sense of hearing, there's a lot of other weird, almost like unfinished business that happens in this. Like Joe is obsessed with waxing the floor. She's given that to do for the whole first episode, for the whole first scene.
Yes.
Right?
The whole last scene is all about her newfound fetish of fluids draining, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and then Blair's given nothing to do aside from be have basically be the excuse for cousin Jerry to come over.
Yes, Blair was Blairless in this episode, but we do need to talk about our writer because we have.
Who the hell is this person?
We have a first timer here.
Yes.
But
I did not recognize this person's name.
Kimberly Hill, who I believe is a woman, but I tried to like confirm it, but I know like there's Kim Fowley. There are male Kims. There's Lindsey Graham. There are male Lindsays. Everything's possible in the world these days. It's a nightmare. Not that dual gendered names are a nightmare, just the world in general. But
I have a dual gendered name.
You do. You do. You could be a man.
I could be a man. There is a Brit man. His name is Britt Hume. He's a journalist. Brit man.
His name is Brit Man. So Kimberly Hill was a production secretary for Soap and Benson, two things I absolutely love. She wrote a single, It's a Living, and then she joined here, Facts of Life, as a story editor. However, she also got to like moonlight with a Family Ties episode and a One Day at a Time and a Double Trouble. She did that first George Clooney ER show.
Oh yeah,
one that was a sitcom. But she stayed at Facts of Life all the way through '86.
So here's my question: when she goes and moonlights on these other shows, does she also only write the deaf episodes for those shows as well?
No, in fact, this is.
Or does she do a lot of other different disabilities?
Facts of Life, this is her worst episode. And I believe that this was given to her because they were like, because she wasn't like an actual writer at the time. She was still freelancing, but she like worked in the production office of Facts of Life.
So I will say this though, for as horrible and as clunky as this premise, right, and the way it's executed, there is some good writing in here.
Well, she stays with them for a long time. This is the thing she stays with longest in her career. And she actually writes quite a few, in my opinion, classic episodes that are coming up. Way, way better than this one. This is the last vestige of them really being a kids show to me and not like a show for and about teenagers.
Okay.
This is really when I think they realized, they were like, we're too old to be doing this. This is
right.
crazy.
No, but which is crazy because it's like we're too old to be doing this sort of kids show shit. And what, 2 seasons ago, Hootie was almost solicited to be a prostitute. Yeah, so that's childish.
It's very uneven in that regard.
She did child porn.
So Kimberly Hill also went on to write a couple of Cheers episodes.
Good.
She wrote a Tortelli's, which I liked a lot. Empty Nest. She wrote on Sandra Bullock's Working Girl sitcom, as well as the Al Franken sitcom Late Line. But my favorite of her credits is that she's credited as writing the 1995 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on IMDb. So
she wrote the whole thing.
I mean, that's what it says. So good on her.
Listen, you know what? Here's the thing. Since everything has gone virtual, because of COVID and everything, I will say that one of my favorite, it was a family tradition between me and my mother. And then it has become a tradition between me and my husband to watch the Thanksgiving Day Parade every year. And then the Westminster Dog Show afterwards, which is just a joy to behold. Anyway, this year they're not canceling the parade, but they're doing it virtually, which I think is going to be even more psycho.
I mean, I'm down, but here's what I want to know. Are they like virtual balloons? It's just like a digital balloon, or is it going to be like actual balloons?
Well, so the balloons, I don't think are
my apologies.
The balloons. So no, floats are one thing. Floats are the cars, like this float was sponsored by California Avocados. Here's,
but balloons float.
Here's Maroon 5 to sing their new single, or whatever. the balloons are actual balloons. The balloons aren't the problem. They can socially distance the balloons down, Broadway and
Well,
7th
balloons
Avenue.
can't carry COVID, as far as I know.
Balloons, that's still actually, they're trying to figure that out, whether or not balloons can carry COVID and whether they are actually responsible for the outbreak. Anyway.
Gotcha.
No, I think
that would be an interesting last scene in Contagion 2.
Yeah, was the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Yes.
But the problem is all the best things, which are the marching bands and the Rockettes.
Those are the best things for you.
Those are it's always the best. Like I can't express the joy that I feel when I get to see the South Dakota high school marching band do Louie Louie in in a reggae style. There's just a lot of incongruity that happens during Thanksgiving Day parade.
Might I suggest on Thanksgiving this year, if you don't get your marching band fix, because I know that you're a vegetarian, so you're not going to get your turkey fix either, and I don't want you to leave Thanksgiving feeling cold. Okay. Maybe you could pull up on YouTube, say, the Thanksgiving parade from when you were born, the first year. Because, you, even if you were alive, you would be only a couple of months old, and you wouldn't really remember it.
Dominik, I'll pause you there. The Thanksgiving Day parade in 1982, when I was 5 months old, is my earliest childhood memory.
Okay, then do 81. See what it was like the year before.
That was implanted into my brain before I was born.
1980?
The memory of the 81 Thanksgiving Day parade.
All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe there was a year that you were in a bad mood and you didn't fully appreciate it. Go back and watch that one.
Yeah.
There's got to be other marching bands for you to watch on Thanksgiving to get your fix.
Anyway, so it's not the marching band problem. It's the fact that we can't have giant crowds of people crowding the streets in New York. Obviously.
Yes. But on Thanksgiving, during the Thanksgiving Day parade, I will say, I was never looking at those people. That's the best I can say.
Okay.
Anyway, just tiny bit more on Kimberly Hill. I list some of her good episodes. Bus Stop, Gone with the Wind. You won't know these, but the fans will. Gone with the Wind, Part 1 and 2. Graduation, The Last Drive-In, guys. She wrote The Last Drive-In. Oh. So at this point, I go in with an open heart, but at the end of the day, conclusion says, this is a shitty episode.
Yeah.
And before we get into it, one last thing that I thought I would feature if they're available from here on out. I'll try to remember. Also, they have to both be available, and I have to remember.
This is the struggle.
Yes.
This is the struggle.
We have a single review of this episode on IMDb. It caught my eye. I read it, and I loved it so much that I hope I can find other reviews that are as good as this one.
Yes.
But we'll see. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to like this review.
I mean, I don't like this show, so,
You're going to hate this review. 9 stars out of 10.
Wow.
Voluptuous, 2 exclamation points. This was written March 14th, 2019 by Bucks24001, just in case anybody wants to find him. As you will start. Oh, okay. He's got typos. That's not me.
Okay.
As you will start to notice, in around this episode, Natalie, Mindy Cohen, and Tootie, Kim Fields, were developing their breasts at an accelerated rate that the showrunners would have Mindy and Kim constantly in sweaters and aprons. Kim Fields later went on to have breast reduction surgery in 1984, while Mindy dropped a bunch of weight after the 1985 season. 0 out of 2 people found this review helpful.
Were you one of the people who found it helpful?
0. There's no people who found it helpful. 0 out of 2. 2 people were like, I'm going to log into IMDb just to say, This did not help me on this episode. I was not looking for the birth of the bosoms. As you will start to notice in around this episode.
Here's the thing. Why this review is helpful. We're going to track down box 00022 with the
Don't
FBI.
get it wrong, because we want our followers to find them. Bucks, that's BUCS 24001. Go on.
Find this child porn hound.
Yeah, please find this pervert. We'll find that it's just like an old lady. He doesn't say like "rawr" or anything. It's just like some old lady who's all about breast facts. She just likes to know when the breasts emerged for all actresses.
I mean, there has to be a Tumblr devoted to that.
Yeah, my breasts emerged about week 3 into COVID. All right, let's start the episode now.
Where do we start, Dominic?
Right?
Dominic, where do we start?
I don't know. Okay, so there's a bunch of options in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess cafeteria.
Yeah, there we are.
Mm-hmm. And are any of the girls doing menial labor by any chance?
Yeah, one girl. Jo is what looks like sweeping, but apparently is waxing.
Yeah,
she's waxing the floor.
Isn't she mopping? But apparently waxing.
Yeah. No. And so she's doing something. She's mopping or waxing, whatever. It's unclear.
She's waxing. She says it a couple times.
Yeah, she does. So, and in walks Mrs. Garrett, whose face is completely obscured by 2 giant brown paper bags of groceries, because that's a fairly normal thing to do when you are the head chef of a giant girls' boarding school, is to like go out and buy your groceries to feed your kids, sort of piecemeal. You know,
2 bags at a time.
2 bags at a time. Whatever.
What, like, like 200 kids at this school?
Exactly.
All right. So I got a pineapple.
So during the pandemic, we thankfully are able to, be able to have our thing, our groceries delivered and, to stay safe, and everything, and the thing is that it's like, we literally get down to the last drop of olive oil, like the last grain of salt, the last drop of rosé before we put in an enormous giant order for groceries, because I don't want to fuck around. And I also don't want to just be like, you know what? I kind of feel like getting like a pint of ice cream. Should I just get one? No. During this time, you should get a fucking ice cream truck.
You should see what my freezer looks like. No joke. I would say it's about 14 pints. Yeah. I'm not kidding. I like the limited edition ones, and sometimes you see them, you grab them, and you're like, okay, be safe.
No, but again,
the groceries let me just say, the groceries that she brought in are not enough to feed her and the 4 girls for more than a day. It's like, I'm cooking a special meal for you 4. No. Then maybe.
No.
No.
Anyway, so she walks through without looking, and Joe's like, hey, I just cleaned that spot 3 times already.
Waxed it 3 times.
Waxed it 3 times already. And Mrs. Garrett's like, oh, I'm sorry. How do you know? And then Joe says,
what the fuck is that question?
Joe, well, first of all, she would know, but like, she's like, how do you know you've gone over that 3 times? And then Joe says, like, as though she's sort of confronting stupidity with her own idiocy. She's like, well, I can only answer stupid with stupid. She's like, the floor's getting higher.
That was when I realized I got to get higher if I'm going to spend 3 hours doing notes for this.
Honest to God, the funniest thing is that I was like, I wrote down, I was like, what is this? It's like, these aren't jokes. And then in walks Roy. And then,
may I just say, the only jokes in this episode were in Natalie's play.
Yes, true.
We'll get to that later, but like, it is a joke-free episode otherwise, basically. But I want to also, just before we pass by, do people still wax floors? Is that like a thing? Wouldn't that make them slippery? Isn't it like a liability with all these girls running around, not being able to hear? I was certain somebody was going to say, I've seen this episode like 10 times. My cat's doing weird stuff. I was certain that somebody was going to slip just because like they could not stop talking about waxed floors.
That's the setup. That's the setup. Here's the thing: is that I was in 90 seconds into this episode, and Joe had said that she's been waxing these floors 50 times, and that's when it clicked. When I I subliminally understood. I texted you and said, "Oh no, it's the Tootie earwax episode."
Yes, it's the famous earwax. It's really, and I know I talked about it as being earwax, but watching it again, I learned it's fluid. It's fluid. It's serous otitis, whatever the fuck it is.
I don't know.
I have it in my notes later, but I didn't lock it in. But I did learn that. You know what Google says about it?
What?
It goes away on its own.
Well, okay. So to give Kimberly Hill a little bit of credit, she's not, a doctor, and also she didn't have Google. So
I know, it was just funny when I Googled it. It was the first thing that came up was like, you can last like 2 weeks and it goes away on its own. That's like all Tootie was saying was like, it'll go away on its own. Yeah. Just leave me be.
That's the best thing. Is it like literally Google just directly says that this episode is absolutely incorrect.
Yes, but I would love to confront Kimberly Hill with the inaccuracies. But she's probably the reason she's gone into hiding since 1999 is clearly because she knows that she spread falsehoods about serous otitis. All right. Roy. We're on Roy. My favorite. Love Roy.
I hate Roy so much.
I love Roy.
I hate Roy so much.
I would let Roy do whatever he wanted. If Roy was like, leave your door unlocked, I'm going to deliver some bagels, if you know what I mean. I would be like, whatever's going to happen. It's either going to be bagels or I'm going to be assaulted. Right? I'm into it.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. So here's the problem with Roy. He's clearly supposed to be some sort of dumb comic relief, right?
He was really unfunny this episode.
He was insane. Also, I hate him so much because it feels as though he's come in from a different show entirely.
Yeah, but I like that. I feel like one of Jack Tripper's reject friends at the Regal Beagle stumbled into the Facts of Life because they were on the same night, and I'm okay with that. I feel like a taste of.
Here's
this is what these poor girls have to deal with on a daily basis. The Roys of the world.
Well, sure, but we already had Steve, so now we got to deal with Roy now?
Well, Steve is a different thing. Steve will rape you in his van, and Roy will be a pervy hit-on-you type guy. Neither are good, but, one is more like a night at the Roxbury type of thing, and one is,
waiting for Mr. Goodbar?
Yes. I'm not sure. I don't eat peanuts.
Oh, God.
That's a lie. I think I lied about my not eating peanuts to make that terrible joke.
Yeah. So you should see yourself out. I'm just going to keep talking by myself about how bad this episode is.
All right.
Is your cat doing something funny?
No, I've got prop comedy.
Oh.
Go for it.
Okay. So Roy walks in with a bagel and pastry boxes and blathers on about their non-relationship, right? And she's like, whoa, I'm waxing here. Don't come any closer. And he's like, does this mean we're bi-coastal?
That was the worst. Also, he's got enough bagels for 4 people. It's like the prop people does not understand they're out of school.
They also don't understand how food works.
I feel like the prop person watched this show on TV and was like, oh my God, that's not their house.
Yeah.
Why are they putting the tablecloths on for these girls? No kids need tablecloths for the freaking lunch of 1 pineapple split between 200 girls. Anyway, this is some of the weakest Roy and Joe banter. Also, their ship name, Joy.
Yeah. Anyway, so I literally just wrote down these are not jokes, and then Joe says, "Roy, your bike is calling."
Again, not a joke.
And then he says, "Don't worry, baby, my bike goes when I say go," while doing this sort of he's honking 2 tits move.
Handlebars.
Well, it was open-handed. It was not this.
He's not a mime. What do you want from Roy?
Better than that. And then she said, "Say go, Roy." So then, and he goes, "I like my women mean." Ugh.
They really phoned it in with Roy, like completely. None of it was clever. None of it was funny. But then I did find funny, and I'm sure it wasn't scripted, when Roy growled at Blair, and she was like, "Okay, I like this." Like,
Yeah,
she like,
no. So Joe shoes her out, but I hate this thing of like normalizing creeps especially in 80s movies, and especially being like, like when as much as Joe says, "I hate this, get away from me, you're disgusting, I fucking hate you," Roy's like, "We're gonna end up together, we're star-crossed, and it's normalizing, like, yes means yes, and yes means anal.
well, I just feel like if you don't like the normalization of creeps in the facts of life, you are not going to like the rest of the world. Because I do feel like, Roy aside, because I feel like Roy is sort of like the fly you can't get rid of. Like, nobody's ever like, Roy, what you're doing is good. But it's like, what you're doing is ineffectual and it's consequence free. Now, in 2020, it's not, and it shouldn't be. But at the time, I feel like it's a nice little, like, slice of the culture to, like, kind of remind you what these girls do have to put up with, because it is otherwise a girl-free show. So, I mean, a man-free show. When they do have a man, they make sure to be like, he's a buffoon. Roy is a buffoon. The principal's a buffoon. Even usually when they have parents, the parents are usually wrong unless it's the mom. Not always.
Yeah, but I don't. But still, again, this is again normalizing rape and harassment culture for lols. It's like, it's like Revenge of the Nerds. Where it's sort of like, or any of those 80s movies that were supposedly rom-coms. It's like, well, she's passed out, so you can fuck her. It's like that shit. And it's like, even later when Joe's like, when Roy is like having a freak out because he ran over Tootie with his motorbike. Mrs. Garrett's like, "Hey, Joe, take your sexual harasser into the kitchen and get him something to drink." And
Yes.
and Joe's like, "What?" And then she says to Blair, she's like, "Please, Blair, don't leave me with him alone." And it's like, and then Blair's like, "I won't let you forget that. You owe me one." And it's just sort of cute. Like, I don't think that this is sort of making him seem like, I think they're trying to make him into a thing. They're trying to make him charming. They're trying to make
I
him sort of
wish they could have made Roy into a thing. I still like Roy, but I understand. I wouldn't like Roy as a human being, but I
you
like
like him
Roy as a
character.
foil for these characters. But that is just me. I mean, like, you can want to live in this happy world where Tootie's not a horrible sociopath, and Roy just brings flowers and then politely leaves. But
Yeah.
there are harsh realities in life. There are rapists and prostitutes and pimps in
This is
diners.
Dominic. This is
You
a show
gotta
for
be
children.
careful.
This is a show for children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are they going to learn?
Where
Scooby?
are they going to learn? I don't know. Maybe the after-school special where Helen Hunt does angel dust and throws herself out a window.
Yeah, that is one step up from the episode where Helen Hunt does marijuana and forces Tootie to buy bongs to keep jelly beans in. So it's a step for our youngins.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yes.
So here's the thing. So Blair comes in.
Did it feel like they were setting up a Roy Blair romance?
No. It was just like, he's just a horn dog, and she's sort of like,
I would love a Bloy situation.
And she's an attention whore. She likes any attention, like any guy should growl at her like that.
I know. I mean.
Anyway, so she walks in and she says to Mrs. Garrett, exposition. She says, his cousin Jerry arrived yet. We're going to lunch, right? And then
my heart sank. I was like, oh, it's a cousin Jerry episode.
So, and then she walks over the floor, over Joe's freshly waxed floor, which, here's the thing, Joe definitely does not have a waxed floor, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I bet there's gravel down there.
Yeah, and like old, like dried leaves and sticks. Yeah.
I could see her shaving it into like tire treads.
Yeah. No shaving. Absolutely not. Anyway.
Just as like a special occasion for her partner.
Yeah. Anyway, so I do have to say that there is a lot of, as always, when someone is, angry or hurt or whatever, they tend not to, sympathize with them. It's like blood in the water in the shark circle. And so I do have to say that in this episode, the girls were like exceptionally mean to one another.
I have that too. They have never been
mean.
meaner to each other than
yeah.
in this
And
episode.
so the best thing is that so Joe's like, hey, don't walk there, you moron.
I know.
It's like, and Blair's like, well, how stupid of me to walk on the floor. And then I literally wrote down, like, you know what, Joe? This is numero 3. It's your fault. You should have put up a goddamn sign.
Or wait.
Piso mojado. Floor is wet.
Why is the most high traffic time of day the time you've chosen to wax this floor? Wax it when everybody's going to bed.
Yeah, do it in the midnight. Yeah.
In the midnight, exactly.
In the midnight.
But yeah, and nothing funny ever comes out of this wax shit, but they just keep bringing it up. So then the Toots Anders, and they're in a little tizzy.
Screaming at one another. Absolutely screaming.
Apparently, Tootie's bad acting ruined Natalie's short play.
Which was...
They were laughing, but in all the wrong places.
Yeah, no, and the funniest thing, she goes, and Natalie's describing it, she's like, this was sabotage. You fucked me on purpose with your awful acting. I don't understand what the hell's going on with you. You screwed me on my beautiful play, which was, your basic sophisticated comedy, which this show clearly is not.
I know, because when we get to Natalie's writing, it's a step above the rest of the episode. So, yes, Natalie says they were laughing at all the wrong places, and Tootie retorts that in Natalie's plays, there are no right places to laugh, which is so harsh. Harsh. I wrote, this is where I wrote, there seems to be a bitchy tone at Eastland today. Well, I wonder if they can hear it.
Well, but the thing is that it's so weird because it's like, so her acting might not be that good, whatever. But, and I guess that she's just trying to be defensive and insulting so that she can hide her disability, her fear, right? Mm-hmm. But like, if you read the script, you can't say that there are no jokes here. You know what I mean? So her acting did ruin the Natalie's basic sophisticated comedy, the Bickersons.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Joe gives no fucks about this. Does another, hey, I'm waxing here. And Tootie turns around and sees what Joe's doing, and reacts in a way that no human being on earth would ever react. She sees that Joe is waxing. She throws down her towel and goes, "Aw, what is this?"
No, and she goes, "I was just leaving my footprints for posterity."
Well, that comes after.
Oh, does that come after? Anyway, so she says that, and I literally wrote down, did Natalie write this episode? Because these jokes are bad.
Yeah, well, but no, seriously. So she turns around and sees Joe waxing, goes, "Oh, what is this?" and throws down her towel. Like, I can't walk in front. Like she's completely blocked from the rest of the room for some reason, having seen what Joe is doing. And then Joe hits the nail on the head immediately. No mystery into what's going on. Didn't you hear me? I said I'm waxing here. And then Tootie plays it off by going, "I'm just leaving my footprints for posterity," which would be weird enough for the girls to discuss, I think, because it was awful. But Jerry comes in with her low button-down shirt to be like, "Hey, I'm sexy. Look, I poofed up my hair because it's 1982.
You know what she says?
What does she say?
She comes in and she goes, "Hi, people."
Very
normal.
That's
very
what
normal human way to greet people.
That's
Hello,
what
human beings.
Sophisticated jet setter like Jerry Warner, I was going to call her Jewel, would say, "Hi, people. Hi, party people. Whatever." She's fancy. She's a hobnobber. Oh. She lives and works with celebrities.
So here's my question.
I think, I don't know.
So yeah, so she comes in. Blair's disappeared to go upstairs to change for this very fancy luncheon that she's going to with Jerry, right?
And yes.
And so, cousin Jerry comes in, and Mrs. Garrett's like, "Blair's just upstairs changing. She'll be right down." And cousin Jerry explains why she's there.
Well,
right?
She says in such a weird way. She goes, "Mrs. Garrett, did Blair tell you I'm playing the lounge of the Howard Johnsons?" Why would Blair tell anybody that fact? That is not a cool thing to say. That is sad. That is not impressive.
So that's the thing.
She didn't tell me.
No. So that's not only it's not the lounge at Howard Johnson's. It's at the new Howard Johnson's. Okay,
So this is like one of those good Howard Johnson's clearly has sponsored this show because Mrs. Garrett got a job there last year. And I can't remember, but remember when Joe took like 17 jobs? I vaguely feel like one of them was Howard Johnson's.
Maybe.
Because I remember being
but
like,
I remember,
whoa, that's the second Howard Johnson.
So that she could stay at school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to do a little bit of a like deep dive on Howard Johnson's.
Sure.
So first, because it's a weird like rabbit hole. So
okay, because you did go down a weird rabbit hole last time we discussed this, so I'm excited to see if it's the same
this
one.
This is new shit. This is brand new shit. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, there's a Hojo in Pasadena that we can get a room for tonight for $72 if you want.
Okay.
Sound good? And it's described online as, quote, unpretentious hotel with a pool.
Sounds right.
Sounds good. Anyway, so Howard Johnson have we covered the fact that it was created in Quincy, Massachusetts in 1925? Did we cover that? Okay. Anyway, so but they're known for their restaurants and motor lodges, whatever. So it was started by Mr. Howard Deering Johnson, and he had a little pharmacy, and he noticed that the soda fountain was the most popular part of his pharmacy, and so he was like, oh, that's an opportunity, and then was like, you know what I need to do? I need to soup this place up. I need to make it. I need to offer the things that people really want. So he invented a new type, or someone gave him a recipe or whatever, but he made a new type of ice cream, call back to ice cream, that had more butterfat in it. So it was incredibly.
You 100% told this.
Yeah. Anyway, so
you had me at butterfat. That's what unlocked all the memories in my heart.
And then he invented 28 more flavors. Like, it was very popular. He had a lot of beachfront, like little shacks, whatever. And then he created the first Howard Johnson's dine-in restaurant in Quincy, Massachusetts. And only because of a weird turn of events in 1929, it became really popular because the Eugene O'Neill play, Strange Interlude, was supposed to be played in Boston, but it was widely banned because it was extremely sexual and there's an abortion in it. And so instead of like a sexual abortion. No, there was a lot of like intrigue, and it was also like the first play, a first American play that really popularized the use of soliloquies again. Okay. In any case, because it was banned in Boston, the Theater Guild was sort of like, you know what? I don't want to like go toe to toe with the fucking mayor of Boston. Let's just put it on in Quincy, Massachusetts. It's like right here. Anyway, the fucking play is 5 hours long. So they do it with a dinner interlude. And the only restaurant that was near the theater was the Hojo. So all these like well-heeled Bostonians were eating at this Howard Johnson and being like, holy shit. Oh my God, these clam strips and Frankfurters and ice cream and soda fountain. This is amazing. And went back to Boston and like talked it all up. Anyway, expand. It was well known as because it had an orange roof with cupolas and weather vanes. So it was easy to identify from the highway.
I love a cupola.
What?
I said I love a cupola.
Cupola. Anyway, so when the Pennsylvania State Turnpike, the Ohio Turnpike, and New Jersey Turnpike, and the Connecticut Turnpike were built, Howard Johnson bid for and won exclusive rights to serve drivers at service stations. So it became this very ubiquitous thing of like quality control. I know what I'm going to get at the Howard Johnson. Right. Anyway, so it was also a flashpoint during desegregation because in 62, Bernie Sanders picketed one in Illinois because they were segregated, and it was like, and then finally Hojo's was like, actually, we want to be on the right side of history. And then they desegregated them and allowed black people and white people to eat at the
Howard Johnson's.
Anyway, so in the 70s, 3 very bad incidents occurred.
Oh.
2 at the same Hojo in New Orleans, where 2 guests who were ejected for badly behaving set a fire, which killed 6 people. Then
that's terrible.
And then at the same haunted New Orleans Hojo, a former Black Panther used the cupola with the well-known orange roof as a sniper perch and murdered 7 people, including 3 cops, 2 people who worked at Hojo's, and a honeymooning couple. And
well, that's terrible.
Then, last but not least, in 1974, actress and singer Connie Francis, do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Connie Francis was raped in the Jericho, New York Hojo, and she sued them and won because they never found the rapist, but they were found guilty for having no security. And she won $2.5 million and was responsible for setting that precedent to like every hotel in America having to upgrade all of their security. So that was
good for Connie Francis. I'm
exactly.
sorry that's what it took.
No, of course. But again, as with everything in Facts of Life, it always comes back to rape.
Well, I feel like you had to work a little bit to get it there this time, but I'll give it to you.
Sure. But the other great thing about Connie Francis, which is this is where the true rabbit hole is that she became very famous. She was an Italian American singer who was born in Jersey and raised in New Jersey. And she was famous for her hit, Who's Sorry Now? And Stupid Cupid. Stupid Cupid, you're a real mean guy. But most famous for Where the Boys Are, because that was the name of the song. That was the name of the movie that she was in. That was also the most popular song, which was also a movie that popularized Spring Break. But she was also, again, going back to her being a little bit litigious, especially about the rape thing, absolutely. But when she sued a studio for using her song Lollipop Lips in a particularly salacious sex scene in the movie Jawbreaker.
Good for Connie Francis. If that's where her money's coming from, keep it coming.
She's still alive. She performed in 2010 with Dionne Warwick in Vegas.
Yeah, I didn't say good for dead Connie Francis. I said good for Connie Francis.
Yeah, but the other thing, so this is the weird thing. So Connie Francis won this very famous case that caused all these hotels to upgrade their security and was kept Howard Johnson in the news for many years. And then this was written in 1982, right? That judgment happened in 1974. So presumably everyone knew that because it was a very high profile case. And this writer was like, am I going to shit on Cousin Jerry? She's performing at the brand new Hojo off Route 9 in Peekskill, New York. I thought she was a very famous, good comedian.
I have decided that I believe that the writers have concluded that there's a Howard Johnson's nearby and not much else.
Okay.
That maybe they have a little map, and then what do we know? We know there's the moat that keeps all the rapists and baits away from our girls, and then we have over here the Hojo.
There has to be one, right? It's just this lack of research. But here's the thing: she could have been oh, I just came back from performing at the Orpheum, a sold-out thing at the Orpheum in Toronto, and I just decided to swing by Peekskill to see my best friend Blair for lunch.
They're never trying to say that she's successful. She is definitely a struggling comedian on by all accounts, it seems. But yeah, so undeterred, Jerry tells Tootie that if the audience laughs, then the Howard Johnsons will connect her television.
I texted you being I need you to watch this episode with the closed captions on because I can't understand what this joke is and I don't understand what it's about. And she's staying in a room at the Hojo that presumably is comped, but they're so cheap that they're not going to turn her television on.
Yes, if she does good, if she gets a lot of laughs, it's not about ticket sales; it's about laughs.
Okay.
She can pack the place, but if they don't like it, no television for you. If they think it's funny, then we'll give you television so you can unwind because you've earned it.
Well, why wouldn't you just be you know what? I don't give a shit. I could bomb, but I still get that paycheck. What do I need TV for?
I think she likes it. She was excited about the possibility. But Natalie doesn't give a fuck about that. She's just thrilled that there's a professional comedian around to hear her short play, which she wants Tootie to act out again. But Tootie doesn't do garbage, which was amazing.
I literally that was my first laugh. I laughed out loud because it's such an insult. And it's like, Tootie's just acting like a diva at this point because no one can figure out what the hell's going on. Presumably, Natalie has written some real clunkers, in the past. And it's like, presumably maybe it is shitty. And like, here's Tootie because Tootie's a great actress. Everyone knows that. She was Captain Von Trapp, right?
That was very believable.
Yeah, she was, in South Pacific. Everyone knows that she's a great actress. So she says, you know what? I don't do garbage. It's garbage. I mean, I believe Tootie at this point.
Yeah, but Tootie, you've done 4 seasons of The Facts of Life at this point, so there had to be some garbage there.
That's what I wrote down. And the great thing is that Mrs. Garrett's like, Tootie, be a good sport. Do the garbage.
I got a chuckle out of that.
Yeah.
So Tootie agrees. They do the scene, which is about a husband and wife at home. Yes. And before we get into the scene, can we just talk about the staging of this? So bizarre. Okay, we're going to face the audience and move our chairs so we're facing the audience, and all the people we want to watch this play
are
behind us and look at the back of our heads while we perform.
Yeah. Normal. Very normal blocking. Very normal.
Distractingly weird.
Anyway, as I said, Weekend at Bernie. He directed this.
So his name isn't Weekend at Bernie. His name is just Bernie.
Weekend at Bernie.
So Nat plays the husband. She's got a deep voice.
Yeah.
And then Tootie's gonna play the wife, like a Betty Boop type character.
I guess.
What was that about?
Well, it was just to like milk this shitty situation for any sort of laugh, because as soon as Natalie hitches up her leg, showing off her giant black sock, and then goes and rubs her chin and goes, "So I was talking to Harry at work today, and he wants to have dinner some night." And then, "Tell Harry we have dinner every night."
Yeah, I thought that was...
And then Natalie stands up, walks around menacingly, and
yeah,
goes,
why do we need the blocking? Like, seriously. If you're not even going to face the audience, why do you have to do the blocking as originally performed in the play?
Yeah, and goes, "You call this dinner? I call this gas for less." Gas for less? Did I hear that correctly?
You did.
So the only gas for less that I could find is that there is a gas station called Gas for Less that actually has a lot of good reviews online.
Oh, well, that's nice. Are they in the Los Angeles area?
I think they're like closer to like like Bakersfield.
Oh, okay. Well,
so you can't go there. I mean, you could take a trip to go to Gas for Less.
Yes, but I would spend a lot of gas to get there, and it would be the expensive LA gas I'm spending to get that cheap gas, which by the time I'm home, I've probably used up.
Yeah.
I wondered if like Gas for Less was like a chain back then or something. Either way, that joke didn't work, but that was the joke that they have to repeat over and over again, as though, Tootie, did you hear me? And Tootie, as an actor, a seasoned actress, should probably, if she knows she can't hear, look at your scene partner. Don't just look away and be like, "I guess the scene is over 2 lines in. I'll just stare into space," because that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
But she does catch on after a minute and decides, "Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll look at her mouth so I can know, and I'll tilt my good ear at Natalie."
Yeah.
And then Natalie says, which to me, my favorite line of the episode: "5 years of marriage and you touched me once. How come?" The way Natalie delivered it was great.
Yeah, I have to say the delivery of that was unusual. It had an odd cadence because it was because she was like, because it had a formal setup of, 5 years of marriage and you touched me once. Beat.
How come? That would be normal.
Natalie's
no beat at all.
It's very fast.
No beat at all. 5 years of marriage and you touched me once. How come? So good. It's funny every time.
Honestly,
it's funny every time I hear it.
That felt revelatory to me.
Yeah. That is, Natalie is getting her comedy chops. And she does get funnier and funnier. And she stops laughing at herself over time. I
And
also
then
thought
Tootie
that
said,
Tootie's response was funny. 5 years of marriage and you touched me once, how come? And she goes, it was an accident. I'm telling you, I think the lines in this play are consistently, the gas for less aside, funnier than the rest of the lines of the show. Mrs. Garrett thinks it's funny because it's the Bickersons. Mrs. Garrett basically accuses Natalie of plagiarism, but we've done that episode like 6 times, so this one's about earwax, nothing to worry about. Natalie is sad that her idea of a bickering couple isn't groundbreaking.
I feel like that's bedrock of comedy. Tootie and Natalie are a bickering couple, you know?
And then
so Joe and Blair.
And then Tootie is like, I told you it was old hat, which I love that expression. But at the same time, no, you didn't. You told her it was garbage. And this is the beginning of Tootie changing her tune consistently.
Yes.
Anytime a tune starts, she changes it.
Yeah, because she can't hear the tune, Dominik. She can't hear the tune.
Tone deaf. Tune deaf. Both. So Mrs. Garrett proceeds to rattle off Bickerson's lines like she was just in her room smoking a doobie, cranking the Bicks.
So do you know what the Bickersons are?
Mm-hmm. Would you like to tell us?
Yes.
Please.
So the Bickersons was a radio comedy sketch show about a bickering couple.
Mrs. Garrett told us that much.
Yeah. It was on the radio from 1946 to 1951, right? Normal, everyday reference for, I guess, Mrs. Garrett to know that. Fair. You know, and the girls to not know. But in any case, so it was created by the same guy, Philip Rapp, who created Baby Snooks. Remember Baby Snooks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so this was done. The married couple were played by Francis Langford and Don Amici, and they spent, as described online, as a married couple that spend all of their time in a relentless verbal war. Which
like
is
you and me.
Which is basically what it's like being in quarantine with me and my
husband. Same with me and my cat. Just kidding. We don't even talk anymore. It's really sad.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
It's because I call him all the time late at night when you're asleep, and he talks to me.
That explains things. A little bit. So the lines Mrs. Garrett recites are nowhere near as funny as Natalie's lines, to be frank.
Yeah, I didn't even bother writing them down because I was like, I really don't want to repeat this shit. Yeah, it was basically sort of like the house is dirty. You know, there's more dust in the bedroom than the Mojave Desert or something.
No, it was so much dust in the apartment. I feel like I'm at the beach.
Yeah.
Like not funny. Like Natalie's stuff was way funnier.
Yeah, because she makes a sex joke.
That's true. She does. Yeah. But Joe cracked up at the Bickersons, and Nat uses this as an excuse to put the blame back on Tootie and explain how if Tootie had just delivered this in a classic vaudevillian delivery, then this would be a lot better than delivering it like Betty Boop from upstate New York in the early 80s.
Yeah. So the funny so Natalie comes back, comes back to Tootie and is like, you see how funny it can be if it's done right. And Tootie doubles down and she says, well, I think the whole thing is stupid.
Says it was Natalie's overacting that does it.
Yeah. And I wrote down hard same, Tootie. Hard same.
Mrs. Garrett wants to know why Tootie's so upset. And she goes, it's just a fun thing.
I know, but also here's the other thing. So Tootie is clearly going through some shit and is very upset. She's been caustic, abrasive. She's been screaming. She's been stomping around. Everything is crazy. She's acting like she's never acted before. And Mrs. Garrett, caretaker, house mother, says literally the worst sentence possible to an upset person.
Which is?
What are you getting so upset about? What are you getting so upset about? It's just a fun thing.
In my life, a lot of people have always said that they don't like being said that to. But I always feel, for me, if somebody's like, what are you getting so upset about? That's an opportunity for me to explain to them why I'm so upset.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that, but I feel like you can just say, you can have the intent of that question and maybe just phrase it slightly differently. You
True.
know, basically say, how can I help? You seem a little unnerved, you know, whatever. Tell me what's going on in your life, you know.
True. True. But that's not, Mrs. Garrett wants nothing to do with whatever's going on in Tootie's life. She's willing to just let it go on, even when whatever her spaciness is doing is causing serious injury. She's just like,
Whatever.
calm down, Natalie.
Yeah.
But anyway, so people walk on the floor again. Oh, sorry. Tootie exits, and Natalie follows after her to find out what's going on, and then people walk on the floor again, and Joe acts like they weren't doing it erroneously, continuously throughout the entire scene. The blocking is so weird. Like they were just on the floor and she didn't mind, but now that she has a moment to have a line, she minds.
So here's the thing also about this show and how incompetent it is that the A plot of this is one thing. That's fine. Keep that fine. But then the B plots and C plots are so weak. And
were there B and C plots in this episode?
The floor and Roy.
What about the Hojo? I just feel like these are just things they're saying. I don't think any of these are plots.
But again, the other thing is about, especially about the incompetence, is that when they focus on one of the girls, when the girls aren't sort of united in bad behavior, right? Like when they're all fucking around and being naughty, right? When it's focused on one girl, the writers have so little imagination that they end up giving the other girls like dregs, like not even dregs, like the whiff of dregs. Like, you know, we should give Joe, who's the strongest actor here and the least funny, a whole bit about waxing the floor.
Mm-hmm. And then Blair, who actually is funny, give her nothing.
No, literally zero. The only reason Blair is in this is so that Cousin Jerry can come by. Anyway, so then Blair comes back down to go to lunch with Cousin Jerry.
She's actually respectful of the floor.
And she's like, whoa. She's like, yeah, no. I won't go on your special waxed floor.
I learned my lesson.
And Joe's like, you might as well. It's now a major highway. And then scene.
Yeah, and Blair's like, okay.
Why didn't they just end it on Tootie running up the stairs?
No clue, because they were like, whoa, we just watched the episode, and Blair doesn't have any lines.
No, but like, whoa, we have to resolve this floor situation, otherwise people will be like, I'm really concerned about that fucking floor.
Yeah, Roy should have slipped on it.
Yeah, honestly.
Anyway, what you eating?
A raspberry.
Nice. So now we're up in the girls' room, and it sure looks like Tootie's hiding a secret. Natalie comes in and says she's not joking, and she's not joking when she says this. She says she's seen Tootie be mean and obnoxious before, but it's never been this bad.
I have never, ever seen you this bad. I love the fact that she acknowledges the fact that she's just like, I've seen you be a piece of trash. Yep. I've seen you be a mean, obnoxious cunt, but it's never been like this. So something must be really off.
And Natalie is like, Tootie's like, you just suck at criticism, Natalie. That's what it is. Your play's not good. It won't make it to Broadway. It won't make it to the hallway. And it's like, you know what, Tootie? Maybe you shouldn't be writing the jokes either.
No, of course. But also then Natalie is sort of taken aback, and she's like, criticism from an actress?
I enjoyed that. I imagine that might have been some kind of subliminal message the writers put in for the actresses.
Yeah.
Like Mrs. Garrett was complaining about how she all of a sudden lost half her lines to Cousin Jerry. And they were like,
were like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah. Criticisms from an actress. Tootie puts on some funky 80s.
I felt like I was watching Marriage Story.
Tootie puts on some funky 80s instrumental. Which I thought it was a bop.
Yeah, it was good. And Natalie's like, you're just trying to drown me out. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, I am. You're screaming as much as I am. I can't listen to you. I'm dealing with my own problems.
But she's not acknowledging them. And Natalie is sad. Tootie used to think her writing was funny, but that was before she needed to drain her of her confidence in order to cover up a health issue, just like a good friend would.
Normal, very normal, hyper normal behavior from everyone involved.
Yeah. And then this is when Jerry comes in and tries to break up the argument, Mrs. G style, with her sarcastic.
So here's
quip.
the thing. So Natalie and so the music is playing, you know, and then Natalie and Tootie are screaming at one another. In comes Cousin Jerry, slams the door. She screams at them. It's just screaming. And then she turns up the music and she's like, delivers a joke, quote unquote joke. It's not healthy to hide your feelings.
Womp womp.
And then Cousin Jerry goes, you know what? And this is the blocking. Natalie and Tootie turn away from one another because she split them up, right? And
yes.
We're focused on Natalie, right? And Tootie's over on the other side, and Cousin Jerry's in the middle of them. And Cousin Jerry just goes, I've been watching you. You've been acting weird. Which, again, not a cool thing to say to people. You know, you could say that literally any other way. And then because Natalie's a fucking raging narcissist, immediately assumes that it's about her. And she's like, does this laundry list of like, I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, I guess I've been flying off the handle. I just don't take criticism well. I never have. You know, when I was always trying to like make my family laugh when I was a little kid, and then I used to barf when they didn't laugh. And then Cousin Jerry has to like be like, okay, you need to stop spiraling. I'm not talking about you. And Natalie's like, I knew you weren't.
She didn't know. She was just like, oh, good. But
yeah,
it was a real window into Natalie's soul.
Yeah.
It was dark. I can't believe she said that, you know, if people didn't think she was cute enough as a baby, she'd vomit on them. That was my favorite little nugget in that speech.
That's such a weird thing. Also, so then once Cousin Jerry fucking, you know, reassures Natalie that she's not talking to her. She's like, I'm not talking about you. You know, then like fucking ear, nose, and throat doctor Cousin Jerry comes out and is like, I think you have a hearing problem, Tootie. And Tootie's like, what?
She's also like, Tootie, 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 Tootie. Then she taps Tootie, and Tootie's like, what do you want? That's when Jerry is like, I think you have a hearing problem. And at that point, it doesn't take a doctor to diagnose it. But as a kid, when I watched this episode, I always wondered if Tootie's hairstyle contributed to her hearing issues because it was so thick and it goes over her head like a soundproof barrier. But that was just a guess. But anyway, Jerry has CP, she reminds us, just in case she didn't know. And that comes with hearing loss, she informs us. So she knows the signs. Mm-hmm. She backs Tootie into a corner until Tootie finally admits it.
Relents.
Yes, fine, yes.
Okay. So she tells her, she's like, here are the signs of like how I could tell that you have a problem, right? She says, you were moving around to hear better. You were leaning in to listen. Again, normal things to do when you're having a conversation. But then, getting mad at people because you can't hear them. That was my favorite because it's like,
who doesn't do that?
Can't hear you, you know. Anyway, so then Tootie relents, and Cousin Jerry says, well, what did the doctor say? And Tootie goes despondently, she's like, I don't know. And Natalie says, you couldn't hear him? The audience goes out of their minds with laughter.
That is a notable quote on IMDb of this episode. That's like the one quote.
Out of their fucking mind. It's like they had to pause taping for like 15 minutes. Like it
did.
Because people were like hyperventilating from laughing at a little girl's distress and her friend making light of it and making a joke. And then
she delivered it as though she meant it, though.
No, to put a cherry on top, they hold on this for so long to listen to this laughter. Mindy Cohn can barely keep her fucking face. She's like almost gonna break.
That was her one home run this whole episode.
She was barely holding it in. She was like, that was such a zinger. I killed that. I want everyone to acknowledge how amazing I did. I delivered that line beautifully.
Yeah, I thought she did good. I mean, it's, you know, It's 38 years later into the future, and it is the quote of the episode on IMDb, so she knew.
Anyway, so then Cousin Jerry's just like, okay, so you need to go to the doctor. Promise me you're going to go to the doctor. And Tootie's like, yeah, okay, fine. And then she's like,
she says, yeah, okay, fine. And then she turns to the camera where Jerry can't see her and makes this devious face like, I'm going to use this time to sneak back into the city and buy some crack cocaine from my prostitute friend.
Yeah.
Like, she was like so sinister with her face. It was creepy. And then Natalie's quick to forgive her friend. No wonder you've been acting like such a jerk. You couldn't help it. You're so easy to forgive, Natalie.
But that's also such a crazy thing to say. So no wonder you've been acting like such a jerk. You couldn't help it because you're differently abled now, so you should feel mad about it and treat other people like shit. That's not only condescending, it's rude and weird.
But luckily, Tootie doesn't even hear it, which freaks Nat out so much. We have to take her to the infirmary. Who calls it an infirmary?
1982 calls it an infirmary.
Does it?
Yes.
I basically live in 1982, and it startled me that it was like the medical ward of the. It was just creepy.
Well, it's a boarding school. They have to have an infirmary.
Go to the nurse.
Hospital?
Go to the nurse's office.
No, that's not enough. It's a boarding school. They would have to have an infirmary in case kids get really sick. You have to go stay there.
Get your ears drained. Anyway, Nat starts playing the role of Dr. Green and learns that Tootie, a known liar, is now admitting to around 2 weeks of harboring the I can't hear you virus. Nat freaks out. What about contract tasting? Is it too late? In reality, she makes a crack about Tootie waiting until she's 16 so she can drive herself to the doctor. Classic stuff. Tootie says she knows what it is, but then she turns to the camera again. There's a lot of turning to the camera. And says there's a lot of stuff in the ear. The anvil, the stirrup. She just starts listing ear parts.
I know. This was my favorite part, because this was where it was clear that the writer had done a modicum amount of ear-related research.
That's and two words. Anvil, that's in the A's. And I remember the stirrup because of horses, so I remember that one. We're good.
Yeah, no, but the thing is that she looked at a diagram of the inside of an ear and was like, okay, I'm just going to put in some words that people would be like, yeah, that sounds right.
That's the urethra.
Yeah, my urethra. Yeah, exactly.
So Tootie again admits to lying. She was never going to go to the doctor. Oh wait, we forgot about maybe something's caught up in the stirrup.
Yeah.
She laughed at, and then she's like, "Well, I'm not going to the doctor. I'm never going to go to the doctor." It's just like that sty in my eye. It's like
she's like that.
It's going to go away with the warmer weather. It's a hoax.
Anyway. Exactly. Drink some bleach. Tootie drinks some bleach.
Yeah, Tootie drinks some bleach and dies at the end of the series. Tootie makes Natalie promise as her best friend not to say a word about this. Natalie protests.
So here's this was my favorite line. Tootie says, she appeals to Natalie and she goes, Natalie, you're my very best friend, right? And Natalie says, every time you ask that, it's trouble. I was like, that's clever for little girls to make that identification of being like, you're gonna lie on behalf of me, right? But and because here's the thing, Tootie is a fucking psychopath, and so I bet she asks Natalie every day 50 times, Natalie, you're my very best friend, right?
I need you to slip this into Brenda's drink. Anyway, Natalie agrees somberly. She's willing to watch her best friend slowly lose her hearing.
Well, I will also say this. Here's the thing. As a friend, Natalie's in a tight spot here. What she should be doing is encouraging her friend to get checked out and normalizing visiting the doctor and not acting like a hysterical weirdo, being like, are you deaf? Are you crazy? Oh my God, you're being crazy. I always get in trouble
Tootie on this.
No. All I'm saying is that Tootie should go to the doctor and get checked out. But she shouldn't even have to ask Natalie to not disclose personal medical information. You should never have to disclose personal someone shouldn't have to ask you to be like, hey, can you keep my, status as of having herpes private? I'd appreciate it. And then someone's just like, actually, no, I'm going to tell everyone. There are actual federal laws against this that the president is using right now.
But if Natalie doesn't do this, Tootie could have permanent damage to her middle ear. Anyway, we're back in the cafeteria where Tootie is putting down some unnecessary tablecloths, rocking out to her Walkman, which fairly new at the time. I thought that was cool. This is the second time we've seen one on the show, but they really giving these kids Walkman. So nice of her lawyer parents to get her a fancy Walkman in 1982.
But I thought it was kind of a little sort of weird because, here's the thing. She, she's bopping out, but, she can't hear anything. So.
Well, she can hear in one ear, first of all. But second of all, the whole plan is that if you have the headphones on, then when somebody's like, Tootie, 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 and you can be like, I'm totally healthy. I just had my headphones on. Tap my shoulder. I'm headphone Tootie now. You want to talk to me? You're going to need to tap my shoulder.
Yeah. I'm no longer roller skating Tootie. I'm headphone Tootie.
Yeah. This is a clever plan. Anyway, Mrs. Garrett complains about how she's not getting airtime because of it. And then Tootie says something about her new transmitter not working. It's like, what is this dialogue?
No, I know.
Anyway, Mrs. Garrett says Tootie's been acting odd. She's like a stranger in a Tootie suit.
I didn't mind that.
Okay. I wonder if this is Roy's plan to get into the same bedroom as Joe. I'll just kill Tootie, wear her skin, and damn, I forgot to make the ear holes big enough. Now I can't hear anything. Suit. Everyone's gonna think I'm deaf.
And a little black girl.
He wasn't concerned about that.
No.
That part of his plan worked great.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mrs. Garrett comes in. She's like, what the hell's going on with you? You're acting really weird. Yeah, you're acting like a fucking zombie, like a stranger in a Tootie suit. And she said, I heard your English teacher told me that you were clowning around in English class because when you were asked who wrote Catcher in the Rye, you said Johnny Bench. So, lol, I guess. Anyway, so Tootie brushes that off and she's just like, whatever.
Well, he's a catcher.
Made people laugh. So, do you know who Johnny Bench is?
Yeah, he's former Cincinnati's Red catcher from 67 to 83.
Yeah, he was the best catcher, like the best catcher in the league. He's like one of the greatest catchers of all time. And he only played for the Reds. But he was named baseball's most eligible bachelor, but he was married 4 times.
And not that eligible.
What? Well,
I
think he got married. He was in the league for a long time. I think he was unmarried for 12 or 13 years. Anyway, he got married the first time after meeting a toothpaste model who used to date Joe Namath.
Was she because this is a while ago, was she one of those dancing tubes of toothpaste?
Yeah, that's what he likes. That's the thing he likes the most.
I mean, they put hot girls in the toothpaste suits. She was,
had a big smile. Okay. Anyway, so she was a toothpaste model named Vicky Chesser, who, as I said, had previously dated Joe Namath, who I once saw on an airplane, and he seemed like a very nice man. Anyway, they got married after, they got engaged after only knowing one another for 4 days. But then, it quickly, became apparent that they were not suitable for one another. And I think they got divorced after, a year or something. I didn't go that far into it. But one of the reasons that Vicky Chesser was maybe he's not the right guy for me was because he encouraged her to take the offer from Hustler to pose completely naked for $25,000.
What's the matter with that?
Well, she was sort of don't you want these just to be for you? And he was like, no. I want everyone to see your coot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, if you're dating somebody with a big dong, wouldn't you want to be hey, check this out. I get to go home to that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell people about it, but I would never encourage them to pose naked. Anyway. So this is what Vicky Chesser said about Johnny Bench. She said, Johnny Bench is a great athlete, a mediocre everything else, and a true tragedy as a person. When I read that on Wikipedia, I laughed out loud. I was like, wow, for a toothpaste model, she's so mean.
Some spicy toothpaste. Must be cinnamon.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's the thing, is that she was like, Catcher in the Rye was written by the most famous catcher in the world.
Yeah, so I feel like it's such a dumbass answer.
Yeah.
Tootie's hearing should have no bearing on that because she heard the word catcher. She's in English class. Clearly, they must have been reading or about to read Catcher in the Rye. Like, bad hearing doesn't prevent you from reading J.D. Salinger off the cover of your book. And also, Johnny Bench. What a stupid fucking name. Like, you're a baseball player. Your name should be like Johnny Homeplate or something. You don't want to be on the bench. It's the worst.
True.
Anyway, that's all I have on that. So Mrs. Garrett wants to know why Tootie cracked wise. And she said baseball humor is just a phase she's going through, like wearing knickers. What?
So I think she meant basically just short pants, not underwear, like not the British term knickers, like underwear, but some short pants are just like, they're sort of like capris. That's what knickers are as well. That's why the Knicks are named the Knickerbockers.
I'm literally wearing short pants right now. They're not shorts.
Yeah, those are knickers.
Okay,
So I guess you're still in your knicker phase.
I didn't think that it was a phase. I feel like Mary Tyler Moore was wearing them as an adult with a child on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Well, I think there's a very actually old-fashioned phrase, which is usually about little boys, which is like, oh no, I'm out of short pants. Like I wear long pants now. Like usually it's like when you wear short pants, you're a little kid.
You're saying that there is a well-known phrase that goes, oh, I'm out of short pants now.
Yeah.
That's the expression.
I think it's I'm out of short pants, or I'm too old for short pants, something like that. Okay. I swear. You know what? Facts of Lovelies, raise up and help prove me right.
Don't you have a husband? Shout out loud. Ask him to Google it.
He's upstairs.
That's why I said shout and not he would be listening otherwise. Anyway, so Tootie says she's not worried about English class. Miss Garrett wants to know why. She's like, because I'm having too much trouble in French.
I mean,
that was funny.
Again, that's clever. You know, it's like I got too much to worry about French. I'm not even worried about English. Like, fuck that shit. I'm gonna be cousin Jerry in that class, making all these fucking jokes and yucks.
Well, she's deaf becomes her.
Yeah.
She's funnier that way.
Yeah.
So Joe asks if Tootie wants to clear after dinner, but without her protective headphones, she's coming off deaf again. And so she says, no, it's raining. Completely ignoring that it's not raining. We can see the windows behind you, and you didn't pay for rain.
No,
it's
and also
just
and the best
a regular sunshiny day.
Is that they hold on Joe for a while, and she's just like, what? And it's like, well, also, the question you asked does not, and the answer that she gave, which was nonsensical, does not warrant a what? Like, how, what? Okay, like, be like, okay, so yeah, I guess it's raining, so.
But it wasn't raining.
Okay.
It was so weird. It was like, also, like, what was it that you were going to say? Like, what did you think Joe said? What is it that you won't do in the rain that you expect Joe to ask?
I think it was after dinner tonight, do you want to go for a walk or something?
I don't think that Joe and Tootie go for a lot of after dinner walks. Something just tells me that doesn't happen, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, continuity alert. Mrs. Garrett offers Blair services as a French tutor because Blair knows how to speak French. Yeah. And when Blair tries to offer help, she's like, oh, you're having trouble in French? Yeah, Mrs. Garrett just told you, first of all. But second of all, Tootie just stands there like a moron. Mm-hmm. And not seeing that this is untenable, Natalie decides to try to smooth it over and say that Tootie is so good at French now, she doesn't even understand English anymore, as of like 30 seconds ago.
No,
the audience loves it.
She also tries to, she also defends when Joe's like, what? She's like, oh, yeah. You know, it's a known fact. Tootie never clears up after dinner when it's raining. And then she helps her conceal the fact that she's going deaf, you know, with the Blair situation. She's like, yeah. She can't speak English anymore. So, like, basically, she's like, she's now a deaf mute.
Yeah. And what was this choice? Like, how many lies does Natalie plan to tell from now until the end of time when Tootie's completely deaf, and now we're just gonna keep pretending? Like, where does it end, Natalie? Anyway, they're all fake laughing.
Yeah.
And
in comes cousin Jerry.
So awkwardly.
This shrieking laughter, and she's like, I haven't heard that sound in a long time. Music to my ears.
She goes, don't tell me. I recognize that sound. Laughter. It's been so long.
She should quit. She needs to stop being stand-up. Like, at this point.
I agree, because if that was her trying to be casual and funny and make a joke to her friends, that wasn't funny. No. That probably made all of her friends feel awkward and off-put, much like I imagine her stand-up comedy does. It brought the scene to a crashing halt. Yeah. And then Blair has to translate. So I guess the Howard Johnson's lounge show didn't go well. Because honestly, I was like, why did Jerry just come in here and be like, laughter? I haven't heard that. Like, what are you doing? I genuinely needed Blair to translate and explain that the Hojo was a bomb. Hojo was a no-go. Anyway, apparently it's a tour group from Ohio, and Ohioan tour groups can laugh too, as long as you're funny and not painfully awkward, Jerry. Just an FYI. But she lies. She says they laughed until they found out that she wasn't part of the package. So, like, how does that work? Like, the tour group sits down and suddenly realizes, like, oh, now that you've entered a comedy show that you, for some reason, decided was free, you now have to pay. So you get 3 minutes of free comedy as a taster before you decide whether or not this is worth your cash. I just don't understand the scenario where that went down at the Howard Johnsons.
But clearly, I mean, I thank you for translating all of that for me, because I did not understand a single bit of that when I watched it. But also, it seems as though, like, not only has cousin Jerry never seen stand-up, but neither has the writer of this ever, or been to a hotel.
Maybe this writer saw stand-up at the Howard Johnsons in like the late 70s or something, and was like, that was the worst thing ever. And now I have to put Jerry into my show. Where would Jerry be performing? I don't know. What was the worst gig I can think of? The Howard Johnson's stand-up comedy lounge. All right, that's where she belongs in my book, says Kimberly Hill. Anyway, Tootie sees Jerry and just flat out shorts out in a way no human would. Yeah. Lying and saying immediately she has to go to the library and buy a book. And then Mrs. Garrett, who didn't have a problem with all of the weirdness that was coming out of Jerry's mouth, goes, they don't sell books at the library. Like she's calling her out on something. Like, bitch, the woman misspoke. Okay.
No, I know. And then she's like, well, maybe they'll let me borrow it. And it's like, what is this business here? And then, like, it's like, Blair's like,
she's deaf and dumb now.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, that's not what happens, you know? Like, she's stressed out. So fine. But, like, so they're all like, you know, Blair and Joe pile on. She's so spacey. She's been impossible. I've never seen her like this, you know? And then, you know, cousin Jerry confronts Natalie saying she hasn't gone to the doctor. Has she? And that Natalie's like, you know what? Back the fuck out, cousin Jerry.
Yes, I will say two things here. One, cousin Jerry is back in one of her high-necked shirts. It is unbuttoned as opposed to the last time when it was like choking her, but the neck is back. And I don't feel like they made those shirts either before or after 1982. They were just made 1 year and for one actress, cousin Jerry. But
because some producer was like, you know what, we gotta cover up cousin Jerry. She's flashing those cans too much.
9 stars, voluptuous. But also Jerry seems to know what's up and makes a beeline for Nat and whispers she hasn't gone to the doctor yet. Like, does she know that this is a secret, or is it just like a HIPAA violation to say Tootie's medical history?
It is a HIPAA violation. Anyway, so like Natalie's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Get the fuck away. Blah blah blah. And then in comes Roy with a shrieking Tootie, And he's like, I didn't mean to hit her. She's going, ow, 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 ow,
Roy
ow, ow.
hit Tootie in the vagina with his bike because she's deaf.
Yeah. So he's like, I didn't mean to hit her, right? And then Joe says, you hit her with your truck? If Roy had mown Tootie over with a truck, I don't think Tootie would have come in clutching her vagina.
Yes. Also, later on, Tootie is like, Roy doesn't have a car. Like, why does one of us know all about Roy's vehicle history and the other one is just making up vehicles that he might have?
Right. No, and then like, and then it's like, Roy's like, no, my bike. It was horrible. It was loaded with day-old bread.
You know how hard that shit is?
Do you know how hard that is? Huge laugh. Why?
Why is Roy acting so dramatic also? I mean, I get I'm scared that I hit a girl with my bike, but like when he sees what he thinks is blood on his hands, he's like an insane person.
Yeah, he shrieks.
But also insane is that Joe's decision to lick anything out of Roy's hand. That is just masturbation fodder for the end of time. Like, it is 2020 and Roy is still thinking about that moment.
Yeah, it was gross. Anyway, so then he's like, they're like, how did this happen? How did this all happen? And he's like, well, I rang my bell. I shouted, but she didn't stop. The biscuits went 30 feet, which also gets a huge laugh for no reason. What is all this dumb bread related humor that everyone's having a whale of a time about?
So we know he's got day-old bread, he's got biscuits, and he's got some kind of pastry that has jam in it.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this? How much is on your bike, bro?
No, I know. Anyway, so this gets a huge laugh, and Tootie's insisting. She's like, I'm fine. And then it's like she's fine. And then Roy says, oh, sure. They always say that, and then they sue. You hit her with your bike.
And Tootie's parents are lawyers. It is inevitable.
And I honestly, this is where I wrote down, I was like, I fucking hate Roy. He's like an even more neurotic, annoying Elliot Gould. And I hate Elliot Gould.
I don't hate Elliot Gould or Roy, but I do like Roy better than Elliot Gould. And I will say that Roy really makes me think he's like one of those guys that's like really outwardly pervy with you. And then when you get him in the sack, he's like super vanilla and scared and probably can't get it up.
Yeah.
That's Roy.
Yeah, so the worst of both worlds.
Yes.
Because what you want is a man who's extremely nice to you and kind and loving and then fucks you like a stallion.
Oh, that's what you want? I've been doing this all wrong. I have to make some apologies after this is over. But so Roy monologues about his trauma. He rang his little bell, and and Tootie didn't hear him coming, and the gloves are off. Natalie starts ripping into Tootie, but Roy's still worried about his lawsuit. Roy's panicked, and Mrs. Garrett, for some reason, tells, as you mentioned this, I also picked up on this, Joe. He is.
Please take Roy to the kitchen and give him something to drink, some water or a soda, or something.
Because he's the one who he directly targets you with all of his sexual advances. So why don't you two go in the other room? Even though there are plenty of other able-bodied, including a whacked out Natalie who's trying to freak out. You should say Natalie to Roy, but whatever. We wouldn't have an ending to this episode, and I think we all want one.
Yeah.
Anyway, now that they're due to be alone, Pervy Roy is back and asks his little Florence Nightingale to revive him. She looks like she's going to rip his dick off.
Yeah.
She takes Blair and they leave. And Natalie's freaking out. Tootie could have been killed. It could have been a car. Tootie's like, Roy doesn't have a car. Fuck off, Tootie. Mrs. Garrett thinks Natalie's being a little extra. And that's when Natalie's like, no, I'm not. And she just outs the whole Tootie death storyline. While Tootie's like, Natalie... Stop it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unfunny talk about promises kept and promises broken between Nat and Tootie and Nat and Jerry and Nat and Jerry and Tootie and
blah blah.
It's all super boring. And
anyway, so Mrs. Garrett goes to call the doctor and she's like, "We're going to call the doctor," right? And Tootie's like, you know what, Natalie, like, fuck you. You know, you've lost my trust. You're a traitor. I'm never trusting you again. And I'm never going to forgive you. And she's like, she's like, I gotta go. And Cousin Jerry's like, she's like, I'll help you. And she's like, I don't need your help. Fuck you, Cousin Jerry. And then Cousin Jerry's like, well, I'll help you anyway. Because Cousin Jerry is a nice person.
Yes. And now Tootie is going upstairs to check her diary.
Yeah, because she's like,
she doesn't
Natalie
trust
might have gone
Tootie anymore. She doesn't trust Natalie anymore. And Natalie's like, don't bother. I just had it published.
They are the Bickersons. Anyway, so again,
now we're upstairs, and Jerry tends to Tootie's knee and tells Tootie to face the music while she can still hear it. Profound stuff. Tootie admits being terrified that the doctor might say she's going deaf. Tootie's grandfather is deaf. She's worried she could catch it. Her grandfather just held a super spreader event in his rose garden last week. Her whole family is coming down with deafness. Jerry reiterates that she's got to take care of this for the millionth time.
Yeah.
And Tootie flips out, says she's not going deaf, not wearing a hearing aid, she's not going to the doctor, and
it's not supposed to be like this. I don't want to be handicapped, which rightly pisses off Cousin Jerry, and she's offended. But she's like, I'm sorry, please don't hate me, but I don't want to be handicapped. And then Cousin Jerry sits her down very kindly and sanely and sagely, says, you know, who does? It's not like, you know, you think they showed me what they had and I took cerebral palsy?
And Tootie's like, you told me that joke when you were playing the Elks Lodge 6 months ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so Tootie's
like, like ripped from her stand-up.
Yeah, she's like, it's not fair. And like Cousin Jerry's like, bad things happen. You know, the only thing that you should do, the only thing you can do is the only thing you can change is like your reaction to it and how you
Well, what she says, I think would be really good for our administration to hear. She says, great advice. It is this. Because I heard it. I was like, I'm going to write that down. So that's good advice for our administration. Life may not be perfect, but that's not what matters. Those bad things happen, and sometimes they do. It's what you do about it that counts.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mrs. Garrett arrives, ready to go. She's got her pantsuit on, and it matches her bag, so we better get going.
No. So Mrs. Garrett busts in, and then she's clearly means business because she is wearing a pantsuit and it has a really big handbag, right?
That bad.
And then she comes in, and I actually thought this was the most obnoxious thing that Mrs. Garrett has probably done in many episodes. But she says in her worst, most annoying, sibilant, firm voice, which is barely above a fucking whisper to Tootie, who is having hearing problems. She speaks to her like this. She goes, Tootie, get your sweater. The doctor said you could see you right away. Like, I barely heard what she said, and I have 2 good working ears right now. But
that moment.
It was obnoxious. It was like, you know, here's the thing. Everyone's been screaming in this goddamn episode the entire time. You know, why stop now? Use a firm, loud voice to tell the person who's having hearing problems to put their sweater on and we need to go. No,
perhaps that moment was taking place within Tootie's perspective, so that was what Tootie was hearing.
Yeah, that's how sophisticated this show is. Anyway, so, you know, she's like, Tootie, get your sweater on. We're going to the doctor. He said he can see you right now. And then, you know, Tootie's like, she says to Cousin Jerry, she's like, will you come with me? And Cousin Jerry very nicely says, sure.
Yeah,
and
which she shouldn't have, because she should have been like, fuck you.
Okay, so, again, like every other fucking Facts of Life episode, when we talk about something, it's very important, a pivotal, dramatic moment. Do we see this?
No,
do we see the
moment?
Never
be seen.
Do we see the doctor's visit? Could we have just gone to the doctor's office and seen the diagnosis and see the
too many sets?
Relief,
we can only have 2 sets this episode.
The relief wash over Tootie when the doctor looks in her ear and just says, you have fluid in there from an old infection. I just need to drain it for you. And Tootie just bursts into tears and says, you mean I'm not going deaf like Grandpa, Pawpaw, or whatever. And, we don't get that. No.
You think that Tootie's grandfather is named Grandpa Pawpaw?
Yeah.
Is he like a dog?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, no, we're never going to see anything of consequence. Although there was that time that we did see the pimp and the prostitute try to, like, take her in.
Yeah.
That was exciting. Anyway, we're back in the cafeteria because that's the only place we can go. And Blair is waxing poetic about polished silver because she enjoys her reflection in it, even though her friend might be deaf and is in the doctor finding out right now. Blair gives 0 fucks. She's like, I love polishing silver because I get to look at myself.
Yeah, and then Joe's like, why bother polishing it? It's just going to get tarnished anyway. And then
why wax floors when there's a bunch of people walking in front of it?
Exactly. And then Natalie comes like in for no reason, being like, you know what? Actually, also, you shouldn't make friends. Coupling onto your thing about not polishing silver, because who gives a shit? Why bother even making friends anymore?
It's tarnished. It's because silver tarnishes, and just like friendships tarnish.
Yeah.
It's melodramatic and it's stupid. And they're like, stop feeling sorry for yourself. You suck. Which I think Natalie did get. Like, honestly, Natalie framed this right. And it was just like, I'm sad because my friend was losing her hearing, wouldn't take my advice, and then decided to obfuscate to make me feel like I'm an unfunny and terrible writer just so she could hide her burgeoning disability. Then I'd be like, you're right. That does suck, Natalie. But instead, she's just like, friendships die. Oh, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Real sensitive, guys. Natalie laments that outing Tootie's deafness is going to cost her a friend, but Blair is sure that Tootie will be chill once again, and obviously it really should have cost Natalie a friend the way Tootie acted, but Natalie doesn't have any self-worth, so the minute she gets back, she's going to be like groveling in a second.
Well, right, but here's the thing, is that this is, so, again, I think the perspective in this show is so insane all the time, because Natalie's being like, you tell the truth and you lose a friend, friendship, and then it's just like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. She's like, true friendship doesn't exist anymore. I don't believe in friendship. And it's like, also, you know what? If you saved your friend from permanent damage to her hearing, but lost her as a friend, then fuck that person, because you did the good thing.
Yes, have some self-worth.
Yeah.
That would be a great fact of life to teach the girls that watch the show. But no. Also, apparently Tootie holds grudges, just not between episodes because everything resets for some reason. But supposedly when Natalie borrowed a hanger from Tootie without asking, Tootie responded by locking her closet for 2 years. So Natalie's just an abused woman in a dysfunctional friendship at this point. When Tootie returns, and
again, the stakes are so weird in this show. So we're threatening permanent hearing damage to a little girl, right? And the thing that Natalie says about Tootie, her best friend, her very, very best friend, is that she holds a grudge. And, it's not over because she's a fucking psychopath. It's not over really serious things. It's over
I assumed it was over everything.
A hanger.
Yeah, a hanger or hearing loss. It doesn't matter.
But literally anything else. Like, I lost her favorite sweater and she never trusted me again. Like, that makes sense. But a hanger, it just makes it sound stupid.
It's to exemplify how awful Tootie is, which she is.
Yeah, true.
And so Tootie returns, and Natalie not only grovels, but grovels extremely loudly because Tootie's so deaf. But Tootie just gloats. She's like, oh no, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going deaf. It's serous otitis. Natalie was like, I knew it was serous. One last shitty joke for her out. But yes, as I said, I looked it up online and it goes away on its own. So Tootie was right and there was no need for this episode. But the doctor treated it then and there by cutting a hole in her ear and draining the fluid on the spot, which sounds horrific, but Joe is so into it, presumably because it's like draining the oil from a bike or something. I don't know, is my guess.
Yeah, it's like I think she's also for sure it's like getting an oil change, but also I think Joe is the science nerd. She likes science. Remember that? She's
also she loves when women produce fluids.
Yes, she does love that. But I also think so. Then she's like, oh yeah. So Tootie describes it. She's like, he put the hole in my ear, and then they put the tube in and drained it. And she's like, I'm gonna have to have it checked in a couple months, to make sure it's fine. But like, I just need to wear it for a while. And Blair's like, ew. What if someone sees your gross tube? So it's like both of Blair and Joe are oddly, are showing their whole ass, like in terms of just objectifying this little 12-year-old girl about her new found, hearing problem. And but like, even when Tootie has actually come full circle into acceptance of, the fact that she, was very courageous.
It was like somebody slipped Tootie a memo, which was what was the right attitude to have towards having a tube. What difference does it make is what she says. That is not the Tootie that we just saw leave for the doctor. No, which Tootie, is all of a sudden you're totally zen about this? Bullshit.
Exactly. Tootie was like, I don't want to wear a hearing aid, but now she's fine with your ear tube. Anyway, it just shows that like the writers were using Joe and Blair to, show the grotesque reactions that people might have towards someone who had to have a medical procedure. One is Joe, which is, hey, can I come and see your leaky ear? I want to come to the doctor with you and see that. And then Blair being like, gross. Am I going to catch deafness from you? I don't want to look at your tube. That's disgusting.
Also, Blair's asking her, can people see it? You're looking directly at her and it's in her right now. So why don't you tell me? Can you see it, Blair? And no, you can't see it because Tootie has that big penis head hair.
Yeah, I know, but the best thing is that so Blair's like, oh my God, like, ew, people can see it. And Tootie just goes, Blair, that's so dumb.
So we've come full circle. Blair being called a moron at the beginning of the episode and so dumb at the end, yet having nothing to do in between.
Nothing. Not one thing.
But she's very glad that she was able to hear Blair's dumb comment.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Garrett's like, and soon you'll be able to hear a pin drop. And Tootie goes, yeah. Like hearing a pin drop is like the coolest thing you can imagine. It's like getting a car. Anyway, Tootie tells Natalie that if she waited.
So then everyone's like sort of interested in this, like as to like, how did you get it? What happened? What happened? Why did you get this infection? And she's like, well, I remember that cold I had a month ago. Well, I had a ear infection from it. And then, it was because, and then that caused me to have all this fluid in my ear. And then, so now I have to have it drained out. And then Natalie's like, well, how'd you get that cold, Tootie? How'd you get the cold? She's like, well, I went outside with wet hair. And Natalie was like, who told you to not
penis head hair?
Who told you to not go outside with wet hair?
Natalie did.
And then it's like, Tootie's like, you did. And then like everyone's like, yeah, I guess you did tell me that. And Natalie's just being this smug, condescending asshole, being like, you know what? You should just fucking listen to me all the time. I'm always right. Know-it-all Natalie, back again.
But honestly, like, she deserves that moment of victory at this point. She's been shit on by her friends. Sad she lost a friend. Her friends are like, who cares? Nobody's taking her seriously. She's got to hold the weight of the world, watch her friend go deaf. She can't say anything, or she betrays her. It was an impossible situation. So at least now that it's over, she got to do a little victory lap and say, if you just listened to me in the first place, you wouldn't have to have a tube in your ear, you dumb bitch.
Well, so here, and okay, so then now we're done. We're done with the episode. That's the episode.
We are done. Did you have more to say, though?
Yeah, I do. So as I was reflecting upon this as I was taking a shower, because
there's one last thing though. They all gather around the silverware that Blair was polishing, like it's a Thanksgiving feast, like a bunch of weirdos. It was so weird.
Yeah.
They're just like,
again, the direction is bizarre.
Okay. Anyway, you were in the shower. Tell me more about that.
I was in the shower, draining my ear tubes. No, and I was just reflecting on like what what the problem is with this episode, because on the whole, like it felt so sort of like pieced together. Like there was it's like we had like cousin Jerry in there for no reason, and we had Joe and Blair doing fuck nothing. We had Roy wandering around in there just being a hysterical,
doing a lot more than half of the cast.
Yeah, and the core, the A plot is Tootie freaking out about losing her hearing, right? Which again, it's like if they've broken story all for the entire season. Are we on season 4 now?
We are.
Yeah. So for all of season 4, and there are 40 episodes in season 4?
I think 26.
Okay. Anyway, so every single one of these episodes, it's like, well, so we're gonna do one where it's like, Natalie, reveals the fact that a girl at Eastland had an abortion, and that's
23.
also, and there's also, that's also an episode that is about, journalism, ethics, and censorship. Okay, so we're doing that, and then it's like we're gonna do one that's about, medical paranoia or anxiety over, becoming or developing any sort of illness or a disability of some sort, right? So, and what we're going to do is we're just going to make it so it's like a health scare. So we're not going to have the balls to make this an actual episode about someone coming to terms with the fact that now I have to wear a hearing aid. And that's not that big a fucking deal. Plenty of people have hearing aids. My dad has hearing aids, like, just have the balls.
Your dad's not a 12-year-old girl. It's a different situation.
But she's, like, they normalized the fucking braces, but like, how important would it have been in 1982 for little girls and little kids to see a very famous person on a very famous sitcom be differently abled and around something that was at the time large hearing aids, which people would be making fun of. So if it was like, if you're going to do this, then fucking just do it. Don't cop out.
They've done it with Cousin Jerry to the point where they have done it some more than probably any other show on the air at the time. So I will cut them a little slack.
But then don't use Cousin Jerry at all. They're just using Cousin Jerry to
run out her contract, honestly.
To force in this deafness plot. Let Noodly, let Tootie, have this journey on her own.
Well, I think that was probably the original intent of the episode. I really do. It felt like it was very haphazardly Cousin Jerry's stuff was in there. But yeah, that's basically all we have for this episode. I'm excited for next week, because next week Joe is going to enter into a sort of Sarah Paulson, Holland Taylor-esque relationship with a much older woman.
Oh, is it Mrs. Garrett?
Older. Yes, it's
is
very
it Horace
exciting.
Leachman?
No, she's coming in a couple of seasons. Hold your horses.
I want her now.
I know, she's really good. She's really good. But until then, you'll just have to hold your breath, because we are done for now.
Yeah.
All right. So on the fact scale, where does this land? High, low?
Really, really high, for the fact that you can see Natalie and Tootie's burgeoning breasts. So super high. 9 out of 10 on that.
Voluptuous.
9 out of 10 on that. I'd say if the trip to Paris is 0, this was a 3.
All right, that's not bad. I'll take it.
It's not bad, but only because it there was a little. It's because it was the execution. Everything about it was, and it was so clabbered together. It was just like, it just seemed incompetent rather than.
It was not their best. I agree.
It seemed.
I've always thought this is an episode every time I've seen it since I was a kid.
Yeah, it seemed incompetent, but not malicious.
It is not malicious.
Malevolent.
And it won't be malevolent next week either. I think even less so.
Oh wow, that's stunning. No, the other thing is that I was going to say is that and I might have mentioned this on one of the other episodes, but the solo benefit that I have felt post Paris trip is that these episodes now breeze by in like a wisp. Like they watch over me, like and they disappear from my server, in my brain.
I agree. I honestly feel like the Facts of Life Go to Paris movie, which is one of our, if not our most downloaded, it's either our most or our first episode is the most. Either way, it was a successful venture for the Facts of Facts productions. However, for the players, the Facts of Facts, it nearly broke us.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is that I was just going to say is that the reason why, because you told me that it was incredibly popular with our Facts of Lovelies, is that I think it stuck out even when it aired, just as such true garbage, incompetent, like really, really bad, that it sort of, I think it might have traumatized a generation of children who liked this show, also it also made them feel like, was that a fever dream? Am I the only one who didn't like that? Why is nobody talking about this?
It would be fun to get the numbers on how many people watched the Facts of Life Go to Paris and then decided I will never go to Paris.
Or watch this show ever again.
That's true.
That's the thing. It's like, did this stupid movie ruin an entire city for a generation of children?
It's much more likely that it ruined the city because because I know that city, nobody goes there. But Facts of Life lasted another like 6 years, so clearly people were going to Eastland, if not Paris. All right.
Paris. Wait.
I think we have exhausted our listeners as much as possible. 2 hours on a plotless, a half-hour TV show. Only you and I could do it.
True.
All right. Until next time, thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with the oldest living graduate next week. Bye-bye.